Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being today with us. Sorry, I was just checking that everything has start and that we're recording our session. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being today with us. Welcome to a new session of Bisagi's Process Professor. I'm so glad to be back. We took two months of uh, sabbatic time to go back to redefine new ideas, to take into account all your feedback, your opinions, and we're now back with new sessions of Bisagi's Process Professor. I'm so glad. I want to thank everyone for your attendance today, for being here today with us in this new session. If this is the first time that maybe you are attending or you're in one of Bisagi's Process Professor, I want to explain a little bit how this program works, how we will handle every single session, and what are going to be the great things that you will be able to handle and to take into account from this session. Okay. So the first thing that I would like to mention is my name is Kevin Guerrero. I am the technical marketing manager here at Bizagi, and I am also aka the process professor. And how we have been working with this process professor and the idea behind of all this program, this is amazing. Our year number 3 following this process professor. This is going to be our new season 2023 of Bisagi's Process Professor. And when we start this program, we have something in mind, right? And one of our main objectives was we want to create a space for our community where everyone can come here completely free and share some ideas of what's happening in the market. What are the trends? What are the big problems that we're seeing with different companies around the world? How from Bizagi we're trying to tackle those problems. What are we doing from our company and from our platform to actually be better and to actually help our customers in a better way to solve those problems? And that's how Bisagi's Process Professor was created. And last year, we were having Bisagi's Process Professor once a month, and we were having those sessions every second Thursday of the month. We will keep that in cadence this year. It means we will have this one once a month, but we will change the days. So last year, we were having the second Thursday of the month. This year, we're changing that, and we're having this for the third Wednesday of the month. We're adjusting that with a couple of numbers that we saw. We identified that there were a lot of meetings on Thursday, so it was a little difficult for people to get connect. So that's why we're changing that for every third Wednesday of the month. Now, the great advantage of Bisagi's Process Professor is that in general, we are going to try to follow always something like this. It's going to be a general schema. It's going to be a general structure of the sessions. It can change from session to session according to the topic that we're working. But the idea is that you always can have these three important things. The first one, it's a topic overview. We will be talking about something in particular. That can be a new version of Bizagi. It can be a new report from one of the big analysts. It can be something that we have seen in projects and that maybe we want to highlight as best practices. That is the one that we're having today. It can be one feature that we have seen that it's being used by some of our customers in an amazing way, and we want to maybe promote that more and make the community to be aware of that feature and to promote that one, to use it more. And also we will always we will try always to show you demonstrations or to see, or that you have the option to see our products running, right? It can be the platform itself. It can be something about the Bizagi modeler, or it can be Bizagi Studio, or it can be Bizagi Management Console, or the customer portal, or anything about the platform. The idea is that you can always see how our products look like, how they run, and what kind of things we will be able to do with them. And at the end, one of the great things about Bisagi's Process Professor session is that you will have always some minutes at the end to do Q&A. And something really important about this one is that those Q&A doesn't have to be related with the topic that we're talking in every single session. It can be about anything. So if you're working in one Bizagi project and you're struggling with a business rule, or you want to create a new connector, or you don't know how to use one existing widget, that last part of Bisagi's Process Professor is an open space for everyone to actually make questions and to go directly and resolve any question that you can have at that point, okay? So the idea behind of that is that we will be able to just get it and have it in the place or in the moment that we're having this. So what is the topic that I have prepared for you today? So today we will be working and we will be talking about something that is Bizagi integration best practices roundup. For me, the idea is that I'm going to show you between 5 or 6 recommendations that you can follow every single time that you are working or that you are setting up different integrations in your project. To understand this in a better way, we will start with a basic introduction where I will be talking about how you can use or what is the role of Bizagi as your enterprise orchestrator, right? It means that we will see how Bizagi will help you to orchestrate multiple systems and to coordinate them to actually have an application that meets all business requirements. Then we will be talking about something that we have in our product that is one of the views that we have, that is how we will be able to create an app in 7 steps. And for this session, we will be focusing in one of those steps that is basically the one about the integration that we can have it there. Then we will review from a really high level. I'm not going to go and explain all of that in details, but I want to highlight and show you all the different integration types that are available in Bizagi, because I want that you see the big picture and all the options that actually you have available in your projects. And finally, we will just go with the best practices that we will have over there. So let's start with the role of Bizagi as the enterprise orchestrator. So I would like to start with an introduction, and is that we have identified, and actually we understand that every single time that we go to one customer or to one of our clients, right, at the end, we identify that Bizagi is not the only system or the only platform in their organizations. Actually, when we go to customers, we see that the number of systems and the number of available resources within organizations are huge. So that's why we don't want to fight with absolutely all the other systems. We have understood that actually our role as Bizagi, as a low-code process automation platform, is to be an enterprise orchestrator. So it means we're the ones that handle and manage the whole flow of the applications, the whole flow of how the processes must go, but also we know that we need to put together different elements to work together. As which ones? We understand that the baseline for any single application to work successful is to have people, and we need to coordinate them. We need to let them know when they have to go and work, when they have to perform a task, when they have to do a validation. People must be coordinated in order to be successful in those executions. The second part are processes, right? At the end, processes are the ones that will define the flow, where to go, what to do next, which is the validation that we have to do, which business rule must be applied. So the process is the one that controls, is the backbone of the applications that we're handling, and we will coordinate them too. Then we have systems, of course. And is that companies has already a lot of systems that help them to do their daily job, right? They can have CRMs, they can have cloud storage, they can have ERPs, they can have systems to chat, they can have HR systems or financial, a lot of systems. But one of the things that we have seen is that a lot of those systems works as silos. And most of the time what is required in a successful app is to coordinate and to have integrated multiple systems. And that's where Bizagi is going to take more important place. We will be able to orchestrate all those other systems, including even the bots, right? So if the organization already have bots created, we will use them as part of a bigger solution. Usually bots help us to solve individual tasks, individual problems, where we identify a lot of repetitive work, but that definitely what we need to do is to change that for a more global perspective, a high level one. And finally, of course, we have data. because data is structured and organized in different systems, and we need to learn how to control it, how to manage, and how to do it. So as in this picture, one of the things that we're seeing is that Bizagi must be handled, understand, and identified as an enterprise orchestrator. Because if we are successful to put together and to orchestrate people, processes, systems, bots, and data, we will be able to have enough power to deliver any type of applications, from the ones that can be line of business apps used by maybe few users within the organizations, to the ones that are enterprise apps used by a lot of users and a lot of areas within the organizations, but also even the ones that are the mission critical operations applications, the ones that control the core of the business, the ones that involve all the areas on the organization, and the ones that actually probably will need the most a best orchestration systems within the organization. So following this idea, the way on how we have built and we have provide to our users to be this enterprise orchestrator is following different steps that must be complete to create and to define those applications. Specifically, we have one of the views within our products that is the one that allow us to create an application following 7 steps. Those 7 steps has every step has one objective. It must be completed, and once that we finish the 7 of them, we will be able to have an application that is ready for us to use. Within those 7 steps, we have one in particular that is the integration step, and is the one, or is one of the ones where we will be talking about the most within this session. So when we are talking about integrations in Bizagi, as you see, we need to orchestrate multiple elements, multiple systems, multiple bots, multiple sources of data. So how can we actually offer or complete those integrations? So that's where we have the different integration options that are available in Bizagi. And again, I'm not going to get into absolutely all the details, because if not, it will take us much more time, and I don't want that. But for sure, I'm going to show you, or I'm going to talk to you from a high level, which are the options that you have in all of this. If you see, we have a lot of them. So starting from the first one, it is external web services. It means that if you have systems in your organization that expose web services, it can be SOAP or it can be REST web services, Bizagi can integrate directly to them. We have a way on how we can connect to those external services with or through web services. The second one is everything about the Bizagi API. What this means is that Bizagi has some web services from Bizagi exposed to external systems. So it means that we will be able to control some options and some operations of Bizagi from external systems. Let me give you one simple example. We had a customer at one time where they used to have a employee portal where they have everything for the employees, and they want to add some options within that employee portal to control or to manage processes in Bizagi. So the way on how they did it is that from the employee portal, they connect or they invoke through some of the methods that were exposed by Bizagi directly using the Bizagi API. So that was another type of integration. The next one is everything about connectors. And connectors is one of the most powerful integration types that we have right now. I will talk a little bit more about connectors in the next slide. But from a general idea, this is the way on how you can integrate and connect with existing systems, right? Something really important about the connectors is that you will find pre-built connectors ready to use. You will find native connectors, but also you will even have the opportunity to have or to build your own connectors. If you want to learn more about connectors, there was one session that I did last year where I explained everything about connectors, how you can build your own, which are the type of connectors that we offer, which are the ones that are ready to use. So if you want to learn more about that integration type, you can go and watch that video, right? We have data level integration. It means that if there is data stored in other systems, sometimes what we need is to just go directly and bring that data for us, right? We have widgets. that are the elements that allow us to customize the way on how data will be presented when users are working in our web application, right? Through widgets, we will be able to integrate with external systems using plugins or existing coding that is available already in elements outside. I also have a video about widgets if you want to go and watch that. We have email integration. That is the way on how you can integrate directly with SMTP servers, right? To control or to allow some users to complete some steps within a process directly from a mail. It means that if you have a C-level or a VP or people that maybe doesn't have too much time to start logging into multiple applications, you can allow them that within the email, they can take actions. They can approve a purchase request. They can reject a vacation. They can anything directly from an email, right? The next one is everything about the triggers, right? Email trigger. And something important is that this is one of the latest integration types that we release in our product. This integration will allow you to go directly and extract information from an email, checking constantly an inbox, and when some conditions or some business conditions are met, you will be able to just go directly and create new cases in Bizagi, okay? Then we have our approach with RPA that I'm going to talk a little bit more about RPA in a few slides. And finally, we have integrations with multiple authentication systems. So according to the way on how your organization works, you will be able to integrate with different Active Directories to different authentication systems. It doesn't matter if it is an Octo or something that you SAML, any authentication system will be available for you. So from this level, I just want that you realize and identify all the multiple integration types that are available when you're working with Bizagi projects. That's why we say that we can make or we can be your enterprise level orchestrator. From all the systems that are available, we can control it, we can have it, and we can manage them directly with any of these integration types that we have here. Now, I'm going to just go deep into two of these integration types, just for you to give you a better idea, and then we will just jump with the best practice. So one of the integration where I just want to show you a bigger picture, it's everything about the connectors, right? As I was telling you, this is one of the most powerful integration options that we have right now when we're working with Bizagi. What we have or what we offer when we're working with connectors is that we have a set of pre-built connectors ready to use. All of these connectors are like plug and play, right? So basically, you will be able to download one of those connectors to your project, set up the basic login configuration into those systems, and then using it in your projects. And in these pre-built connectors, we actually have different options, right? And different type of systems. We have CRMs, we have OCR, we have electronic signatures documents, we have maps, everything that is required, it's available in our pre-built connectors. Within every single Bizagi project, you are also going to find always three elements that are the ones that we call native connectors: SAP, Microsoft Azure, and then Excel connector. And finally, additional of all this offering, we give you or we provide an option for you to build your own connector. So if you go to the Bizagi Exchange and you cannot find the systems that you want to use or the one that you want to integrate with, then you will have a tool that will allow you to go and integrate with the connectors that you or with any system that you want, right? We will offer you different options, different ways on creative, testing those connectors, among others, that it's going to be the power of connectors, right? Now, the second point where I want to just go into more detail, it is our approach with RPA. So as I was telling you, right, our approach with RPA is really neutral, right? We understand that there are customers that has invested a lot of time, resources, and even money in creating or building bots, right? That's why we're not against that. But what we say is that we can work together with them. So that's why we have a neutral approach with them, and we provide native integrations with the three biggest providers in RPA. UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism. Any of these three elements will allow us to just connect the bots, the existing bots that a customer can have, and then add it as part of the execution of one of the applications that we're working. So if at some point of one of the processes it is required to have a bot executing a manual task, then we can just add it and then coordinate it with the rest of the process. Okay? So now that you saw, this is the big power. This is the huge potential that we have when we're talking about integration options in Bizagi. Are all of them always required? No, right? Some, according to the project, according to the business situation, according to the customer, some of the integration options will be used, other ones maybe no. There are actually some elements that can be done by different integration types, and we need to define which is the best one. We will need to do analysis. We will need to do maybe some load tests. We will need to identify and review the times, but all of this is the potential. Now, considering this big picture, so now let's start talking about some of the integration best practices, right? What I am going to do, or what I'm going to present for you in this moment, are best practices that will apply in general for the different integration types. Some of them will apply for almost all of them. Some of them will apply just for some of those integration types, but I want to have the bigger picture. So always think about the integrations that we're going to have it here. So our objective here is to just have all these best practices and to try to see how to apply it in the different business contexts. So let's start with the first one. And the first integration best practice is the Atom, right? And I don't know if today within the audience we have maybe some fans of comics or DC or Marvel, but actually one of the first one that we have, I am using one superhero from DC that is actually called the Atom. And the best practice that I want to highlight with this superhero, it is actually one that is really important, that is Atomicity, right? So why this is so important when we're talking about integration? This is going to apply in almost all the different integration types that we can have in a project. And it is the best practice that we need to take into account here. It is always when you are creating integration with external systems, try to avoid complexity. Try to avoid that in one single point, you are going to integrate or you are going to connect with multiple systems at the same time. Most of the times, it's much better if you have atomic and straightforward integrations with single and unique system that actually a sophisticated one, right? The best practice that we're talking about here is because we actually saw one case of one in one project where actually we identified one connector that was doing 5 different integrations with different systems. Is that something incorrect? No, it can apply, it can be valid, it can work, but we need to be careful on how to handle and manage those systems, right? What happened when we try to do in one single point multiple integration points? And then I understand what is happening in the systems can get a little tricky, right? Response times can actually grow, right? The user experience can actually be degraded. And also, in case of errors, it can be a little difficult to understand exactly where the error is happening. So one of the things that we saw was, look, a simple, let's say, situation from the customer point of view. They wanted to go to the CRM, bring information from a customer, right? So integration 1. Then based on that, information from the customer, invoke an external web service to try to identify if the customer has some conditions to, for example, a new loan, second integration, then store that information in an external database, then store the documents from the customer in an ECM system, right? And at the end, everything was done in just one single connector. So what was the problem there? That at the end, when they report an error, they report that they were getting late responses, that maybe the behavior was not the best or the performance. And when we start identifying the problem is that the web service was taking too long. So the CRM was giving the response quickly enough. Then the web service was for a long time getting the response. And the big problem is that the end user, the one that was waiting or that was working in front of the Bizagi platform, was just seeing that and not having any single response at that moment. So trying to put all together, it can be a little difficult. If we split or if we broke all those integration into atomic integrations points, it's going to be much easier to identify if something is failing, to actually have traces for all the systems, to actually measure the time that we're expending on every single integration point and understand where it can be our improvement points. So the first one, or my first advice, is the atom. Be as atomic as possible. Try to simplify your integrations, not putting all together or not putting everything in just one single point, but actually having a multiple or atomic element when you can in this particular point. So that's the first one that we're going to have it here in this part. Now, the second one, and following this idea, it's going to be everything about choose your friends wisely, right? So what is the idea behind of all of this? Behind of choose your friends wisely, it's when you're working or when you are handling your integrations, you need to understand and you need to know how to use or how to even combine some of the options that are available in the platform wisely. Not all the time, everything has to go together. And one of the best friends that maybe you can choose when you are doing integrations with our platform is when you want to do integration with external systems. And it is actually the combination between service tasks and asynchronous activities, right? So if maybe you are not familiar with these concepts, let me give you really quickly some definitions about this one. So service task is nothing different than one element within the BPM, right? The notation that is used to create process diagrams. And basically what we say is that every single time that you are creating a process diagram and you identify that in one part of that process or in one point of that process, there is going to be something that it will be executed automatically without any human intervention, then it is highly recommended to put that one as a service task, right? One of the first things that maybe you will have to do is every single time that you have integration points, identify or add those integration points as service tasks. But now, the second part is that if we are choosing our friends wisely, sometimes it's better if instead of having just the service task alone, we combine with something that it is the asynchronous activities. The asynchronous activities is basically one property that we can define for our specific service task. And if we define or if we activate that property for service task, what we're giving is a special behaviors and important information for the integrations to be executed, right? So it means that if the task is marked as an asynchronous, then we will have more options and a bigger panorama to actually set up the configurations. What this means is that when we're working in our projects, and let me just open here one Bizagi project, right? Every single time that we just take these ones down, but basically it's every single time that we are in the process diagram, when I add one of the tasks into my diagram, I have the opportunity to change or to set up those activities into a service task. As soon as I set this task as a service one, I will be able to go to the runtime tab, and here I am going to have all the options from the asynchronous task, right? So the first advice here is choose your friends wisely, in this case, service task plus asynchronous activities. But now, the next one is, if you are going to have these friends next to you, then the next advice is that you need to be a genius with the configurations. And it means that you need to understand what is the meaning of every single property that is defined or that is available here in terms of the configurations that you are doing. Because having friends next to you is good enough. But if you don't know how to use them wisely, then it doesn't work to have them next to you. So here it is important that once that you have the combination service task plus asynchronous activities, we understand exactly what are all these configurations. So Let's review one by one, and let me just explain what is the meaning of this. So you are going to have an integration with an external system. So following the first best practice, that integration will be as atomic as possible. Following the second advice, it chose your friends wisely. You are going to include that integration using the combination service task in your process diagram, and then to enable the asynchronous activities. And now in the third one, that is to be a genius with that configuration, you will need to understand what are you doing on those parts. So the idea behind of the asynchronous activities is that we can have a smart way on how we're going to invoke those external systems. And the first great advantage and the first configuration that we have here is actually the timeout. So that configuration will allow us to define which is the maximum time that Bizagi will be waiting for an answer from that external system. So if I am trying to invoke the CRM, for how long I am going to wait the response from the CRM. This is going to avoid that we'll keep waiting and waiting and waiting forever without any response at all. So once that we get that, we can take a decision of what's happening. The second configuration that we're going to have is here. It is going to be everything about the retries. So what happened? I am going to try to invoke that external system. I go, try to get the response that I want. I define a timeout, and after that timeout, I never got a response. So then I can define if I want to retry, if I want to go to that external system more than one time. So it's like, look, the first time, maybe the system was down, but then let's give it at least 2 more chances. So let's do 2 additional retries, and I will go and I will try to define to see if I got an answer from them. So second configuration here. The third one is retry interval. So do we want to invoke that external system immediately after the first timeout, or do we want to give it a time, right? So it can happen that if the system is down, the system can be down for 20 seconds or 30 or 1 minute. So if we retry immediately, we will keep having timeout. We are not getting the response that we want. So instead of that, what we say is, look, let's wait for 1 minute before going to the external system and try it again to get the response that we were looking for. So this is the retry interval. And then finally, we're going to have one final configuration here that it will be the show feedback. And something really important is that the show feedback, when you see the configuration in the system, is really simple because it is just a checkbox, right? So if I enable it's asynchronous and then I say show feedback, it is a simple checkbox and that's it. And sometimes we got the feeling that because of that, as it is a simple checkbox, maybe there is not enough analysis or there is not enough understanding of what that checkbox is going to do and when we will have to enable the checkbox or not. So I'm going to explain you here the 2 options that you have. So if the show feedback is enabled, it's activated, you mark the check, then it means that the execution or the invocation of that external system will be due immediately. It means that if you have an end user working in the Bizagi application, and that user click, for example, on next on one activity, and the next activity is the integration, then the integration will be executed immediately. It means end user will see on his screen saying, I am trying to connect to the CRM. That implies that if you want to use the show feedback option and leave that option enabled, you must keep in mind that the maximum response time from the external system, it must be 10 seconds. If you cannot guarantee that, then you should not use the show feedback. Why? Because at the end, you are going to have a user looking at the screen, waiting for 10 seconds top, right, to get a response. If the time is more than 10 seconds or over 10 seconds, then it doesn't make sense to actually keep that user waiting. When we have the show feedback, this is in the general term what it is going to happen. So you are in the first attempt, you click on the button to do the integration, right? And then I go to the external system, right? The invocation is executed immediately, right? The user is looking at the screen. If everything goes well, then it doesn't have, it doesn't matter. We just continue to the next step of the process. But if something fails, then all the other properties of the asynchronous activities will enter and will take actions. So I will go and see how long I will have to wait, that's a timeout, to define if I got a successful or an unsuccessful response. If my first attempt was unsuccessful, then I need to wait for the retry interval before going to the second attempt, and I'm going to do as many attempts as retries I have defined in my asynchronous activities configuration. Now, if you don't enable the show feedback, it means if you let that checkbox unchecked, it means that the invocation or that the integration with that external system will not be executed immediately. It means it will be executed in a couple seconds and is going to be executed by an automatic component of Bizagi. It means that now we are handling a situation where in the external system we cannot guarantee response times less than 10 seconds. It will be maybe response size between 10 and 20 seconds. And if you have response times after 20 seconds, you need to handle even in a completely different way. So when you got show feedback not enabled, something like this is going to happen. The end user will click on next. The invocation is going to be scheduled to be executed in the next couple of seconds, and is that automatic element or component from Bizagi called the scheduler that it will be the one that executes the integrations. So all of these marks are really important part on the integration way. We should always try to use our friends wisely, service tasks plus asynchronous activities, but also we need to understand what are the different configurations within the asynchronous activities. Now, if you're able to master the choose your friends wisely and be a genius in the configuration, then being a genius brings a lot of benefits for us. So definitely one of the things that we are going to have here is that we are going to be able to have a much more or a smarter way to actually invoke external systems. We will be able to have timeout to retry. We don't require any human intervention to do those retries at the beginning. And that means that we will basically understand and covers those situations where the integration fails because the external system were presenting an error for a short period of time, for a couple seconds or even a couple of minutes. In those cases, no human intervention will be required. The integration will be executed successfully after that. We are going to avoid deadlocks in Bizagi. If in Bizagi we are waiting for answers from the external system, this is something that we can control with the asynchronous activities. A lot of times happens that customer says that maybe Bizagi is too slow. But then when we go deep and we identify and we do a proper analysis of the situation, what it is happening is that what it is being slow is the external system, but as end user is facing Bizagi as the end user platform, they have the feeling that it's like that. And some of the time is because maybe some of the resources of Bizagi are in deadlocks because they are just waiting for responses from external systems, right? For sure, we're going to improve the user experience because we are not going to let them just being in front of the screen waiting for a response from external systems. And one of the great things is that, and I'm going to go back here, is that if after all the attempts that I have set up in the asynchronous activities, all the attempts were unsuccessful, then logs will be created automatically. It means I am going to have a screen where I am going to be able to go and see what's happening, how many retries were executed, which were the error messages that we were getting, and even we can retry them manually into that, right? And then we have the opportunity to execute those integrations again manually, one by one, if required, okay? So now we have these advices. So choose your friends wisely and become a genius when you are doing those configurations, right? The next one, and this one is going to apply for all the integration, is tune up your integrations configuration, right? What's the meaning of this? Sometimes, or in a lot of cases, we are working in the configuration of the integration, maybe with some estimated data from the external system, right? So it's like, okay, how long it will take the CRM to give us a response? And we say, look, I think it's between 1 and 2 seconds. Okay, so let's put 2 seconds at the beginning. But maybe we don't have a specific data that allow us to know actually if that's the time or not. So the advice here, or the best practice when you are working in configuration, in integrations in general, it is once that you go, or once that you decide to move to your projects into production environments, always define a task in your calendar after 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, depending of the amount of data that it will be handled by Bizagi, to go and redefine your configurations. Use accurate data, use the statistics that you are going to have already to have a system in production to actually set up those times. So if initially you say that, look, my timeout is going to be 5 seconds, right? And then with the time, you are able to identify that actually the response times are much lower and that actually you are getting just maybe 2 seconds or 1 second, go and adjust those configurations. How can you adjust those configurations and how you can actually use real data from that point? So the first thing that you need to take into account is this one. When you are already in your production environment, remember that you will have available this application that is called the Bizagi Management Console. And within the Bizagi Management Console, you are going to have one section called Connect. And within Connect, you have all the different integration types that you can have. You have your Excel connectors, your SAP connectors, your normal or regular connectors. And within all of this, you can go and enter into the configurations that you want to have it here. So if for any reason you are able to know that some of the configurations that you were having here change, then you can modify some options here. But also at the same time, take into account that when you are working in your projects and you are already in production environments, you can use one of the options within our reports to know exactly the times that are being consumed in certain steps of your process. So within the reports, you can go to the sensors. In the sensors, you can create new ones. And remember that you have one that is actually called an stopwatch. So you can measure exactly how long it is taking us, for example, from this first activity to this second or this third activity. So when we got those times, we will be able to know much better the times that is being affected. And with that, maybe we can adjust the times in our configurations, okay? That's the next best practice. Always tune up your integrations configurations. A lot of times happens that people complete the integrations, complete the creation of the applications, they took everything to production environments, and then they forget about those configurations. It is always a good idea. It is always a best practice to go and define if those configurations were done successful or not, right? Now, the last one, something that I saw when I was preparing this information, right? I changed a little bit something, but I think it's a good way to understand this best practice. And it is coffee always, then automate, then debug, and then repeat, right? The one that I found was with coding, but remember, we're a low-code platform, so we don't do coding. We just do process automations or creation of our applications. And the best practice here, it is every single time that we got, or for any reason we got errors in our executions, we need to know and we need to learn exactly how to use traces, right? Bizagi offers or has a huge offering in different tracings capabilities that we have in the product. But should we use all of them? Should we just get everything that you are going to get it into the point that we have here? No. We need to be smart about which traces we should use, when to enable, and then how we can use them. right? Something really important to keep in mind. Please be really aware of this one. In production environments, traces must be used only and exclusive when you are having errors and you want to debug those errors to understand what's happening. You should never leave traces enabled in production environments for normal execution. That can decrease or that can actually put the performance of your application in a really bad place. So always, you can use it. You can use traces in the development environment with no problem. When you want to see what's happening, how the information is going from one system to the other one, what is the response, what is the request, times, everything. You can use it in development environment as much as you want. But in production, you must use it only and exclusively when you are actually trying to debug and resolve an issue. How can we understand much better traces, right? So when we're working with tracing, what kind of things we will be able to do? So the first thing is to understand that we have a lot of type of traces and that when you're working in development environment, you can enable them directly from Bizagi Studio. And if you see here, we will be able to see all these traces available for you, right? So traces for different type of connectors. So if you got connectors with web services, with SAP, with external connectors, with cloud SAP, all of these are going to be able, and you can enable different type of traces. If it is the input, if it is the output, if it is the connector logic, if you want to see all the notifications, or if you want to see only the warnings, or if you want to see only the errors, right? So you can set up as many or as much as you want in this. Now, what it will happen if now you are not anymore in a development environment and you are in a production environment? If you want to enable them because for some reason you're getting an error and you want to debug them and understand exactly what's happening, then in the Bizagi Management Console, you have this section called track. And within the track, you have the tracing option. In the tracing option, you have two specific tabs. One to review the traces that has been generated. So if you got anyone, you will see it over here. Or actually the option to set up your traces. So if you see here, all of the ones that are available here are the same as the ones that we saw in Bizagi Studio. So if we want to have here all the traces from SAP, so do we want to have the export, the import? Do we want to see the ones for external connectors? Do we want to see the ones from RPA? And each of them can be set up or can be configured in a different way. So I can say, I want to see this one from the information. I want to see this one just the errors. I want to see this just with the warnings. And I can set up them all the time. Once that processes are being executed and elements are being executed here, traces will appear here in this section, and you will be able to see automatically what's happening with them. When you got those traces, you need to understand how to read them and what information is important for you to see. Take a look at here. I have some logs, not necessary with one particular system, but one of the things that we will be able to see is when it was created, exactly at which time, which was the source, and which is the type of element that we're seeing. Here, I can review the description and the error that I'm getting, and I can start understanding what's happening. It's like, oh, okay, look, this is an 401. I am getting an error in a SOAP web service. Then maybe something around here, say about some credentials. So maybe I have to just go and review if maybe the credentials for that system are correct or not correct. So we need to be really, really smart on the way on how we will be able to actually enable traces, learn how to use it, learn how to download it, and always remember to turn off in production environments if you are not solving problems over there. Okay? So with this, we're going to get into the end of our today's session.